And I wanted to take a moment to thank everybody here at the channel. Before we get started, there's a lot of potential chaos out there in the world right now, and we are doing our best to report on what we see going on and what we hear that's going on without, we are not a news agency, we're not an intelligence agency, but we are doing our best, given the staff that we have and the resources available to us, to compile and disperse information and intelligence as we can. So, thank you for being here. I'm going to do my best to cover a lot of ground fairly quickly. First thing we're going to talk about is the presidential address. We are going big. Quote, Donald Trump, proposed legislation in the House, I believe, paid sick leave for those affected by coronavirus. Telehealth expansion, no HIPAA fines for working across state lines. Minuteman says a stimulus package is definitely coming. Nationwide bailouts for everyone, basically. Business, personal, doesn't matter. SBA for small businesses. We've already talked about the SBA being empowered. I think it's $210 billion of liquidity that they're looking at there. Straight from the horse's mouth, expanding the authority of FEMA. We're going to come back to that a little bit. The Army Corps of Engineers is on standby, and the president has a whole of government, whole of America approach. This is good as long as they are good stewards of the power vested in them. Testing materials, prevention materials and supplies are being prioritized. The president's press conferences, I think they're doing a really good job. I think that the president is professional, the vice president is professional, the doctors and everybody else that are up there are professional, and I believe that they are doing a good job at trying to keep people calm. If you're reading between the lines, there's a lot going on in these pressers, but I think they're doing a good job. Construction companies are being asked to donate their N95 masks to hospitals and to forego ordering more so that supplies are concentrated where they're needed at the hospitals. We're going to touch on that again in a little bit. Minuteman says the Fed is investing $1 trillion into commercial paper. We know that there has been infusions of capital by the Fed into banks overnight to the tune of $500 billion on some nights. The economy's not looking great. The primary concern with this CV is the economy, unless you get sick. We're going to touch on that in a little bit as well. But I think the vast majority of Americans will be affected economically, not medically, by this. Talking about deferring $300 billion in taxes. Originally it was $200 billion, now they're talking $300 billion. As an individual, you can defer up to $1 million, corporations up to $10 million, 90 days interest-free. No questions asked because of CV. The federal government will offer loan guarantees to airlines and hotels. Not a maybe, but definitely. They are going to do that right now. And when pressed, Minuteman said that checks will be coming to Americans immediately, within 2 weeks. $1,000 a month, question mark. I've heard as much as $2,000 per month per adult in the household and $1,000 per kid in the household. I don't know about that. I think that what the president could be doing, what the presidency could be doing, is knowing that the interest rates have gone to 0 or 0.25%, using the last of our funny money to get it out into the system, to get it liquid into the hands of the people, that maybe they can do some preparing, because this thing is going to go a lot longer than 15 days. So before I forget, I want to remind y'all, If you're not active on the Bear Independent forums right now, bearindependent.com, click the forums tab. Please go there. There are two vital things we are trying to do with the forums. Collect information and connect people. Collect information, connect people. And if you have actionable intel, send it to intel@bearindependent.com. Intel@bearindependent.com. Okay, moving on a little bit from the president's press release. I'm hearing rumors of people starting Facebook groups to encourage other people to hang up their Christmas lights so that people don't lose morale. And the Hallmark channel is going to start playing Xmas movies for the comfort of the people. When I heard this, I had a clear vision of Molech. Do not pass your children through the fire. Do not pass your children into the lap of Molech. I think that there's going to be people whose faith and belief in the Most High is on the rocks or is shaky, that people are going to start losing faith because of this. And this is me pontificating. This is something that came to me when I heard this. I have heard secondhand that Tyson will be out of birds in 60 days. Tyson, the meat bird company, will be out of birds in 60 days. This is based upon a conference call that was had between higher ups at Tyson and their distributors and their purchasers, grocery stores, basically saying if things don't change, they will be out of birds in 60 days. On the upside, Kroger is hiring 10,000 people. 10,000 people for distribution so that they can get food and paper goods and medicine and water from where it is to where it needs to be. So if you are affected by this CV, your job is at stake. Maybe find a Kroger to work at. The stock market per minuteman will remain open. They may shorten the hours that it is open, but it will remain open. They seem to believe that this is a good thing. Only time will tell. I am of the opinion, and this is my opinion, I am of the opinion that this is going to go much longer than a couple of weeks. And I really, truly hope that in a couple of weeks, we'll look back and go, Corona, that was nothing. Remember, we were all so scared about that. But hope is not a strategy. I do not believe that we are going to get away unscathed, that we have a couple rough weeks and everything's back to normal. But I would happily admit that I was wrong if we are. If that does happen. If that does happen, praise the Father in heaven. The office that my town is, the town that my office is in has declared a state of emergency because people would not stay home. That being said, I did go to the office this morning and I did play my drums, and it was freaking awesome because they have all brand new drum heads on them. Evans, not Remo, Evans. That's right, D'Addario family of products. Evans, Genera G2s, the best. I spoke with a client and a friend earlier today who is an ER doc, 20-plus year veteran of the emergency room, and we had a very long and interesting conversation, and so some key takeaways that I was permitted to share with you all per that conversation. MASH tents are, if they're not already right now, are being set up outside of major hospitals to pre-screen people and treat people in the parking lot rather than the hospital. I saw a screenshot of a text from New York City that came in earlier, and it has hit in New York City. They went from no issues to tons of issues, overwhelmed like that. So it's happening. MASH tents in the parking lots at hospitals. PPE is running short, personal protective equipment. People are hand making their own masks and bonnets because there are no N95s, there are no surgical masks. Doctors who have been exposed to CV or potentially exposed to CV are no longer being furloughed, meaning that prior to now, it was policy that if somebody was exposed, then you would be furloughed. You'd basically be given a little bit of time off so that you would reduce your exposure. Not anymore. That's not happening. There's not enough of those doctors. A note for all the rest of us is that shortness of breath, which is a symptom of this, you're going to have your fever, you're going to have perhaps some bubble guts, you're going to have a little bit of respiratory distress during your day one. Once you start feeling sick, day 1 through day 9-ish, around day 10-ish, you're going to get shortness of breath. That doesn't show up until day 10. So prior to that, this CV can present as lots of other things. And of course, we know that it's going grossly undiagnosed. This, for me, was a real eye-opener of a phone call, because up to now, admittedly, this was an economic issue that some people might get sick. Talking with this doctor, I was told that their opinion was that the numbers that came out of China were grossly wrong, that Italy is much more a scene of what we will be seeing in the United States than China, and that the death rate and infection rate of Italy is likely what was happening in China, that the numbers in China are likely 10 to 100 times worse than what was reported. Now, there's been lots of rumor of that, but to hear a bona fide 20-year veteran physician come up with those numbers and those arguments, it got to me a little bit, because I medically had not been taking this seriously enough, apparently. The higher viral inoculum you have, the more exposed you are to this, the more sick you will get. So doctors and caregivers are going to get much more sick, or have the potential to get much more sick, because they have higher levels of exposure versus somebody that encounters it, say, at the Walmart checkout line. Not that you can't get sick at the Walmart checkout line, but people who are the caregivers here, they're much more likely to get sick, and they're much more likely to get sicker because of a higher viral inoculum. Social distancing, this is all per this doctor, isn't just be 6 feet away from somebody. And it's not just don't be where it is. It's also don't be where it was, because this thing can hang in the air for anywhere between 30 minutes and a few hours. So if somebody coughs in the aisle at the Dollar General and you walk through it, you will have exposure to that. It's hanging in the air. And it can live on hard surfaces anywhere between 9 and 72 hours. I've seen 72 hours reported. This doctor says 9, somewhere in there, okay? A key takeaway in all of this, after several of the calls that I've had today, millennials need to learn how to adult. Stay home from the bars. Stay home from the beaches. I don't care if it's St. Patrick's Day. I have been wondering why that doctor that Trump continuously puts up on the stage during these press conferences, whose name escapes me, keeps saying millennials are going to be the ones to save us. If they stay their dumbasses home, they will be. But they have to start taking this seriously. I spoke with another person earlier today who said in Daytona Beach they are closing the beaches at 2 o'clock every day. Not because of the virus, but because they're packed. People won't stay home. They're just continuously going to the beaches and licking each other. So millennials have to learn how to adult. It's critical right now that you avoid hospitalization for any reason. Don't break a limb. If you can, postpone surgery. Be careful. You don't want to be in a hospital right now. The takeaway here is it's already everywhere. So you want to limit your viral inoculum, your exposure, as much as possible. Panic is likely going to ensue, says this doctor, when hospitals are full, because there will be no nurses and there will be no doctors because of their exposure to all of this. When that happens, like is happening right now in New York City, it's going to get real, folks. Medical prescriptions are still available. However, stockpiles of these prescriptions are unknown. The reagents, the stuff that it's made out of, as we know, basically comes from China, the vast majority of it. Now, per this doctor, there's a lot of medicine that is stockpiled by the federal government. However, it's supposed to be rolled over about every 5 years, and there is an unknown quantities and unknown disposition of that medical stockpile. If somebody knows, it's not this person. Gotten a lot of questions about ID 2020, Bill Gates, unknown at this time. cannot confirm or deny anything on that. More from this doctor. If you can, pay cash for prescriptions rather than trying to get your insurance company to go to war with them to get them to pay for stuff right now. If you can pay cash for a prescription, use that cash and go wherever, whatever pharmacy has it. And it was suggested that you use the GoodRx app. The GoodRx app, and use the generic prescriptions. You will likely find 30-day scripts, not 90-day scripts, because most pharmacies as a policy right now are not giving out 90-day scripts. And lastly, from this doctor, COVID-19, this person expects to have an extended impact, at least into August. At least into August. Okay, moving on. There was a confirmed case from a Lowe's, Tennessee employee. Memphis, Tennessee, Lowe's. Yep. In there handling stuff for who knows how long. There's some good stuff. I want to come back to that here in a little bit. As I said, New York City ERs are overwhelmed. COVID is extremely serious. Literally, this text that went out said, prep fast and prep now. Amazon is delaying shipping of all non-essential items, delayed up to 1 month beyond quoted delivery date. This is something I've seen in my own life. Hey, it'll be here in a couple of days. Oh, it'll be here in a couple of months. Awesome. Thanks, Amazon. Indiana, and this was unconfirmed, so I want to be clear on this. Indiana, unconfirmed, going into military lockdown within 48 hours, and reservists are gathering at fairgrounds as of this afternoon. Unconfirmed. Not trying to fearmonger or doomer porn. This is unconfirmed. If anybody can confirm this, intel@bearindependent.com. Intel@bearindependent.com. There are precisely 0 A's in the word independent. And Fort Leavenworth Commissary is out of most things, including liquor. And there are no handles of whiskey left of any kind. So, cheers, y'all. Now, before we get into the brief actual, which is this, everything I just read you is from my notes, which is this, on the day. The brief actual is posted on Patreon. It's available for any patron level starting at $1. Now, I'm going to cover everything in this brief here for free on YouTube, but if you want this written brief delivered daily, you can get the written form on Patreon starting today. Why? This costs money and time to make this happen. That's why, and I firmly believe we're delivering value, and it is my conviction in this time of chaos to deliver as much value to y'all as possible. So before we jump into the brief, couple of things I want to do real quick. First, what did we do today? Not what did we talk about, what did we, my household, do today? We bought more garden stuff. We talked with the neighbor about getting our solar set up for our well. We started setting up long-range ham amateur radio on one of our generator towers. I shipped a metric butt ton of bear facts today, blowout kits. Made a bunch of calls. Acquired more antibiotics and antivirals. Got a ton of stuff from O'Reilly's, limited my exposure. And that was the last time I'm going to town. Got a ton of stuff from O'Reilly's. Filters, oils, cleaners. My wife made homemade applesauce, and it's freaking delicious. However, it was extremely hot and acted basically like white phosphorus when she put it on the tip of my tongue, and I'm only by the hand of the Most High able to actually speak right now. This may or may not have been some type of insider action against me, taken up probably by the Russians, but I'm not counting out the North Koreans. We cleaned house, and it still looks like that never happened because hashtag the kids are at home, and there's not enough whiskey on the planet to make that okay. We staffed up our forums at bearindependent.com hardcore. I had a 2-hour conversation with some key people this morning on how do we make the forums more robust, because just yesterday, Sanctified Industries, which was a thought that the Father put into my head, which is basically a nationwide network, placed 3 families of people who were bugging out and just things were not going right and they had to have a place to go. Hey, Bear, can you help? Yes. Not me, not because I'm me, but because he's him, we can help. But I cannot handhold and facilitate nationally. So the forums are functioning in that capacity. The forums, again, exist to collect information and connect people together, to remove me as a stumbling block from this process so that y'all can get together on this stuff without having to go through me. BearIndependent.com, go to the forums. We instituted the 1 cup rule in our house. You get 1 cup, preferably with an NWA prepper sticker on it. You may use 1 cup per day. I am no longer washing all these dishes all the time. You get 1 cup per day. But I'm dad, so I get 2. This is technically a glass. I played my drums, and it was excellent. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and nobody was there, and I freaking loved it. I put brand new drum heads on it, and it was absolutely tremendous. And we started our peppers and our tomatoes, and got rained on a bunch as well. So that's what we did today. Let's talk about good things that I saw. Then we're going to get into brief actual, and I realize that I'm trying to be brief, but we have tons of ground to cover. Good things that we saw or experienced today. Walmart shelves are better stocked, much better stocked today than they have been in a couple of days. That was really nice to see. Milk, eggs, bread, dairy, all back in stock. Meat, not so much. Very little beef. A lot of pork on the shelves. And I don't know if that's because people are eating less pork or because there's more of it available, but a lot of pork on the shelves. Chicken, not so much, but fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, that was very good to see. Kids playing together. Now, by kids playing together, I mean like in small groups, all, relatively disinfected as much as they can be. Neighbors gathering, people talking, getting together, forming game plans, not in groups of 10 or more, but you can see them all kind of sitting on their 4-wheelers, talking in the driveway, getting together. And lastly, I thought this was absolutely tremendous. A local school here in our area, their school lunch program is they have food and they have bus drivers. And somebody said, hey, I have an idea. Let's cook this food, put it on buses, and run our regular bus routes. And so starting tomorrow, and this should be replicated nationwide. Starting Monday. I love this. They're going to cook food and put it on buses and run the bus routes and drop off meals for everybody 0 through 18. I think that's a great idea because they have the infrastructure, they have the people, and they have the materials, they have the food. I don't know how long it will last, but praise the Father that somebody is using their brain and they're applying good stewardship and they're taking ambition. It filled me up when my wife told me that. It fills me up right now. That's what we should be doing. Positions of strength. And so if you take one thing away from this live stream, let it be that. Now, the report. Gosh, I feel like I'm on the freaking news and I never signed up for this. I really do. Oh well, it'll be okay. And if it's not okay, well, I apologize. The Father doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? Bear Independent Intel Report, 19 March 2020. First are accounts that are 2 or more eyewitness accounts. First column is continuity of infrastructure. Utilities are being told they'll get special permissions to continue operations. Some receiving paperwork already, some being told to apply now. Cell towers, electric companies, internet, phone connectivity providers, etc. FedEx and other supply providers determined as hell to keep operating. Anecdotal addition. Management quote. This is a quote from management. We are still working, even if there are bodies in the streets. WTF, y'all. Even if there are bodies in the streets. Photocopies have been submitted to intel@bearindependent.com. Letter of courtesy extension for the bearer of this letter through the CISA NCC. Basically, these are transport papers, freedom to move about the country papers that will get you through a roadblock or through a travel ban. We've been seeing a lot of these lately, not just for trucking companies, but also for train companies, one of which rhymes with BNSF. Supply chain and industry. The Port of Houston, which is the largest port in the United States, closed 2 terminals due to COVID-19 case, 1 worker. The first plant to close was an automobile terminal, so no cars coming in. And then Ford, GM, and Fiat Chrysler are suspending production as of today. That's it. We're done for right now. We're not making any more vehicles. Under the legal and political header, House Bill 650 passed in Maryland. It passed. House Bill 650 in Maryland allows permanent seizure of any and all personal property, including homes and possessions, without due process or notice. Executive authority to supersede local jurisdictions and require the cooperation of sheriffs, superintendents, etc. for any action deemed necessary. Suspension of the effect of any statute, rule, or regulation of any agency of the state or of a jurisdiction that the governor deems unnecessary or counterproductive. Meaning that the governor can shut you down if you get in his way. Compulsory evacuation of all or part of the population from any emergency area, specifying the mode of transportation used to force evacuate citizens. Current law allows for compelled evacuation but does not specify that the state may confiscate private vehicles. Compulsory evacuation of citizens from their homes during quarantine into a state-designated quarantine area. Indefinite incremental extensions of the order. Termination of the order would require a joint resolution from the House and Senate. Kansas is currently resisting similar measures and keeping a check on their governor. So, Maryland, WTF, what are you doing? And I realize, I know, life is crazy. You get the government that you deserve and that you allow. That's absolutely unacceptable. House Bill 650 in Maryland. In Texas, for 3/20, March 20 through April 3rd, Order number 1, in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, every person in Texas shall avoid social gatherings in groups of more than 10 people. Order 2, in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, people shall avoid eating or drinking at bars, restaurants, and food courts, or visiting gyms or massage parlors. Womp, womp, womp. Provided, however, that the use of drive-through, pickup, or delivery options is allowed and highly encouraged throughout the limited duration of this executive order. Order number 3, in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, people shall not visit nursing homes or retirement or long-term care facilities unless to provide critical assistance. And order number 4, in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, schools shall temporarily close. Military. And these are all under the column of 2 or more eyewitnesses, okay? So basically, as verified as we can get, again, being that we are not a news agency and we are not an intelligence agency, we're wholly dependent upon y'all to gather this intel, and then we corroborate and we analyze. That's what we're staffed up to make this happen. So thank you. Intel@bearindependent.com, email intel@bearindependent.com, and if you want this write-up, it's at our Patreon. Just look for, get on Patreon, look for Bear Independent. There's a logo that looks a lot like that. Okay, military. UK, United Kingdom. The military is concentrating in cities, especially London. National Guard activity is ramping up broad scale. Amen. Been seeing a lot of that. People are seeing unusual aircraft activity. Choppers, multiples in flight, changed flight patterns and frequencies, extremely low flight patterns, frequently noted, military transport helicopters, etc. Lots of military vehicles being shipped via train and interstate. Medical. Telehealth starting up, non-essential medical care closing down. News report. Oregon State Fairgrounds building setting up 250-bed emergency hospital. Many official outlets reporting the U.S. plan includes 18-month plus ordeal with multiple waves, meaning that this, medically speaking, will be a year and a half long and there will be multiple waves of this. I have no idea how our economy will fare in this. We've gone from 2 weeks ago, yay capitalism-ish question mark, to, hey, how about some universal basic income bailouts for everybody, and here's some socialism because we're going to provide federal authority over everything, all critical infrastructure. And frankly, I don't know how you fix this otherwise, and I hate that. And I really, truly believe that while the virus probably does represent a real, actual medical threat to those that catch it, it's being used for plausible deniability to crash land our economy, global economy, to correct the markets, correct valuations, to get us to where we need to be, the reset. Moving on, under societal and general, ammo and guns have been wiped out broad scale. Stores everywhere are getting low or out of standard items. However, rural areas are faring much better. Population density matters. I've been saying it for 2 years at this channel. You get to pick where you are. I don't care what your excuse is, what your reason is. Come out of her, my people, lest you partake of her sins and receive of her plagues. If you can still leave, I think it's time to leave. The worst areas are seeing the beginnings of rationing. Police are backing off except for extreme incidents, broad scale. I've had this personally corroborated by multiple law enforcement officers in the last 48 hours. Nonviolent offenders are being released, broad scale. Also corroborated. Rush on cash. Financial branches ordering more and limiting cash out dispensation amounts. People telling others to pull everything out. Yesterday I was told at our bank that they were out of $100 bills and would I accept the last of their 20s. Said bank also emailed me today to let me know that they are now no longer allowing anybody in the lobby. So drive-through only, please. In Des Moines, Iowa, police just got word to lock down now for 2 weeks. There is currently a run on gas and gas cans. Natural disasters. Reminder, tornado season is gearing up. May through June. Wildfire season, June through August, and hurricane season, June through November. FEMA is already taxed. There's no more money. There's certainly not any resources. Be extremely careful. Be extremely careful. I can't imagine trying to respond to a natural disaster given what we're already seeing. And if this goes long term, and I believe that it could, I don't want it to. I really don't want it to, but I believe that it could. We're on our own, folks. Ain't nobody coming to save us. This is why we have always advocated positions of strength. You have to be so terribly wonderful, competent, strong, squared away that when the world ends, literally or figuratively, you can be an asset, not a liability. You can be a blessing to other people. You can help lift people up, not drag people down. Single witness rumors and leaks. A nuke specialist's travel plans to Connecticut plant. A Connecticut nuke plant was canceled, and all non-essential personnel were told to leave until further notice. First time in 26 years that this has happened. Supply chain and industry. Food distribution centers in Maine are empty. Food being shipped from out of state and stores only getting half of the required shipments. Currently being discussed. No word on moving forward on this yet. National Guard and reserves to help in government initiatives to step in as labor and carry out food rationing via existing pickup arrangements at stores. Los Angeles port workers were laid off, some workers telling loved ones that shipments may cease to be unloaded. Truckers are making record time on clear our roads. Yay! On February 16th, Kootenai County, Idaho Sheriff issues a warning on Facebook that Washington State was headed for a level 5 quarantine and Idaho could soon follow. The sheriff urged people to stock up on enough supplies to hold in place for a few months. Facebook has since ripped down the account of that sheriff. Military. Some FEMA camps gearing up for use. 5 in Alabama. Military compounds, forts, old POW camps with a 15,000 capacity, and prison camps. Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. All base personnel are prohibited from going near a civilian detention area, which is under constant guard. In the United Kingdom, armed forces gathering in Edinburgh and Glasgow, barracks, army trucks entering London. Retired military security member with a signed agreement for recall told to pack bags and be on standby to report to old base. Security is gearing up at prisons, SWAT drills, heavy National Guard presence in town and near federal prisons. Air Force personnel in Spokane Valley, Washington, buying all refrigerators and freezers, 32-inch TVs, and asking for more. Paramedics, moving on to medical, paramedics say cases being underreported due to no testing sites receiving their tests at this time, also currently under-equipped. The ER doc that I spoke with earlier said once we get adequate testing, right now it takes 3 to 5 days to get a positive return on a test. Once we get adequate testing, we're going to see cases explode. When that happens, hospitals will be overwhelmed. They're already understaffed. They don't have much stuff. And in their words, there will be panic and there will be chaos. I hate that because this is not what I want. I've been on record for 2 years saying I do not want the world to end. I like rule of law. I want to die at 104 years old with my grandbabies on my knee. Not this. And I'm telling you, if this is an SHTF actual, boy, it sure feels like we could be headed there. Rural Minnesota, a few instances of thefts from ambulances while on call. 2 large hog farms, Iowa Select farm companies, Iowa Select and one of equal size, in one viewer's area enacting uncommon policies. Mass hog health testing, nearly every barn put on strict quarantine. Employees now required to wear fully enclosed hazmat suits. Usually they shower in, shower out, but in their work clothes. Right now, they're being required to wear fully enclosed hazmat suits, and the type of equipment that they're using on these hog farms is next to impossible for hospitals to get. Lantern Delivery Systems Company meeting requesting managers, supervisors to prepare drivers for FEMA work in North Carolina. Rural sheriffs, societal in general. Rural sheriff asking all school and police vehicles to stay topped up on fuel. All gun transactions are delayed in the federal background check system. Wrong speak about the situation is subject to termination at the Spokane Valley, Washington Walmart. A few robberies and lootings have already occurred, scattered, small time, and they were planned and executed. There have been a handful of suicides. LA is not shutting down like they should. Tensions are ramping up, and there have been some physical altercations. United Kingdom shipments are slowing and stores are empty. One specific fire department in Colorado told that starting at noon on 20 March, they will not receive police support on 911 calls. It sounds like the current policy will be to not respond to certain calls at all. It seems like non-violent fire and ambulance will go, but violent police will go. There was, within a 1 hour radius around Salt Lake City, there was a felt earthquake. The local oil refinery was shut down for about 30 minutes to check for damage and resumed operation. Salt Lake City International Airport had several plumbing pipes burst and was closed. And under the heading of worthy mentions, there's ongoing testing of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, which is a drug for common malaria and very strong arthritis. This was also mentioned by the ER doc that I spoke with earlier today as having showing promise as a treatment therapy. However, we're seeing mixed messages and mixed reporting. Essentially, the zinc and chloroquine seems to keep COVID-19 from replicating in the body's cells, but messages and reporting are mixed. Trump mentioned today, said early results were very encouraging. And lastly, there's a hoax text going around like wildfire about a 2-week U.S. quarantine. Several of our viewers have passed this on, saying a friend or a coworker sent this to me. This has been addressed as spam multiple times. National Security Council addressed this, and we have a screenshot of this on Patreon. The gist of the rumor is once the National Guard is in place around the nation, there will be a mandated 2-week lockdown for the U.S. per the Stafford Act, likely before the end of the weekend. Now, the order that we have mentioned the things in this brief, starting from the beginning to the end, and if you missed it, I would encourage you to watch this from the beginning. Starting around the 20-minute mark, we jump into this brief hardcore. The order that we address these things are from most credible to least credible. Please understand that most credible does not mean that it's true, and least credible does not mean that it's untrue. Again, we are not a news agency and we are not an intelligence agency. We are simply trying to use the resources that we have at hand to bring you information as we can. I'm going to do my best to do this on a regular basis, hopefully nightly, although frankly I thought this would take 15 minutes, not 42 minutes. This write-up is on Patreon. You can look for Bear Independent on Patreon if you want the actual words to refer to. If not, these videos are free. Please share them. Lastly, I'll reiterate, bearindependent.com, the forums to collect intel and connect people. Collect, connect. Everybody tracking? Collect, connect. And intel at bearindependent.com. If you have actionable intel for us to bring to the viewers, intel at bearindependent.com. I gotta shout out our staff. We have a staff of people that are absolutely tremendous. And I don't mean that in the sense that Trump likes to use the word tremendous. Tremendous, believe me, over and over again. It's beautiful. Melania paid for my entire, I wish Melania paid for my entire staff. People love to say, Bear, you just do YouTube so you can make money at it. We have a staff of people. There are 12 people that work with us. Not out of the kindness of their heart, although they're terribly badass in that, and they are underpaid. But we have a staff of 12 people that work with us, and one in particular busted their hump today to get this together for y'all. So deep thanks to that individual who would like to remain anonymous at this time. But thank you very much. Guys, we're going to talk to the Father, and I'm going to go hang out with my patrons because it's Thursday.
You got to put up chickens first.
And I got to put up the chickens first, says my wife. So let's talk to Father God. Father, thank you that even as the world seems to be crashing and burning, that you are still sovereign over all things. Father, thank you for this technology that allows us to communicate. Father, thank you for humbling your people. Thank you for giving us perspective. Father, and I pray your mighty hand on all of this. I pray that you just point us in the right direction, that you would shine light on where it is that we are to go, that you would convict us and that you would move us and that we would walk in your footsteps, Father. Father, I dare not ask that you bless us because I know that we have earned this. And so, Father, I just say thank you for Messiah. Thank you that there's restoration, if not in this life, then the next. Father, thank you for everybody within the sound of my voice. Thank you for the opportunity to do this. And I pray that you just continue to use me to the best of my broken ability to do whatever it is that you would have me do. I ask these things in the mighty name of Yeshua Messiah. Amen. Bless y'all. Stay frosty. Shalom.